All right. Hello, everyone. We are back talking and wrapping up our discussion of Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe. I really have to practice that, not to add the S on babies because blacks
Hmm.
we like to add a good S. Um, so yeah, we're
Kroger's.
covering, huh?
I said Kroger's, Meyer.
Kroger, Nordstrom's. So we are covering part four today. I'm Dr. Danisha Blake,
And I'm Dr. Nicole Carter.
and let's get started. Um, we left off kind of alluding to some of the stuff that we talked about in part three around motherhood, and thinking about how kinship is connected to um, property and the way that slavery is um, justified through this notion of like the kinship system. If you don't have the right to own your like um, child, then that is a way to perpetuate or to continue enslavement and justify it. So these questions are hitting at those, continuing those themes, and we're also going into having a conversation around slave codes and how those were being used to also maintain and sustain enslavement. So, do we want to start? How do you think we should start with?
I can start with the first question.
Okay.
Real quick. Yeah. So the first question is from page 77. I can do the first two if you want, and then
Mhm.
we can go back and forth.
Okay.
So the first question is related to page 77, and it asks, why are motherhood and maternity crucial to Spiller's argument that the historic conditions of African American women might be read as an unprecedented occasion? So that again was from page 77. And then what significant differences in the childbirth and child rearing experience for Black women and American women does Spillers highlight to make this point? So
Mm.
I know it is covered on page 77, but this whole section talks about these experiences. Um, and so I highlighted some things on page 80, but from page 77, just the quote from Brent that
Mhm.
was Linda Brent that was shared, which reads, "Women are considered of no value unless they continually increase their owner's stock. They were put on par
Mhm.
with animals."
Mhm.
Um, and so there, I think, is a great quote that answers really um, uh, at least part two of that question. How was childbirth and child rearing experiences different from Black women? And I think, in quotations, American women, basically, they're just saying white women at
Mhm.
the time.
Right.
And so for me, the reality is that Black women were not even considered mothers in the first place. They were literally animals that were
Right.
giving, not even birthing. Like that birthing was like a conceptualization or I guess, a construct or
Mhm.
term that was given to white mothers. And
Mhm.
so they were just producing labor,
Right.
their owners.
Right.
So
Mhm.
that's a major difference.
Right. And if motherhood was the way that you determine womanhood and femininity, and if you can deny someone the concept of motherhood by not even associating it with them, to your point, being like you just happen to like reproduce this thing. It wasn't birth, it wasn't a process of becoming a mother, it was just this thing. And so therefore you cannot be considered a woman or a feminine person, or those things are not, you don't have access to those things.
Hmm. So the creation of these terms, particularly as they are like reproduced in American society at that time, and even today, like we see it today, did not include Black women whatsoever.
Mhm.
So, like to use them, and I think we get to that later, but to use them to refer to things happening in the lives of Black women is erroneous because
Right.
we weren't uh, meant to be part of the definition.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
and for that, I also, and it'll probably come up again, but I highlighted page 80,
Okay.
where um, page 80, the end of the second, well, the first full paragraph, the end of the first
Mhm.
full paragraph, which it says, oh no, wait, that's wrong. Sorry. I was trying to think. Oh, so even it talks about this,
Mhm.
and again, we'll talk about naming, but
Mhm.
such naming is false because the female could not, in fact, claim her child, and false once again because motherhood is not perceived in the prevailing social climate as a legitimate procedure of cultural inheritance.
Mhm.
So the Black woman could not even, like, that was not deemed as something that she could do or be a mother. So
Right.
it goes back to that point, and it comes up again in other questions. But
Mhm.
oh, another part, it talks about motherhood as female blood right is outrage is denied at the very same time that it becomes the founding term of human and social enactment.
Mhm.
So for the Black woman, it's not a thing. Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
So the second question asks, how should we read the legal code of slavery according to Spillers? Why does the author refer to the legal code of slavery as aspirational and prescriptive?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts?
So I wrote down slave codes were meant to quiet contradictions that or dissonances that people might have had about slavery, especially on the world stage. And so on page 78, um, it talks a little bit about how um, even when people try to, or when people are getting like, um, sort of like up in arms, like, okay, this doesn't seem right. There's always something to keep people reassured that this is the right thing. And so I want to say, I'm trying to find it in, this is why I didn't want to highlight because then, but then I'm like, I should have highlighted, but then I would have highlighted the entire entire essay. So I'm like, everything can be important, but now I can't find
Oh,
where it is. Okay. So it says, even though we tend to parody and simplify matters to behave as if the various civil codes of slaveholding in the United States were monolithically informed, unified, and executed in their application, or that the code itself is spontaneously generated in an undivided historic moment, we read it nevertheless as exactly this: the peak points, the salient and characteristic features of the human and social procedures that evolve over a natural historical sequence and represents consequently a narrative shorthand of a transaction that is this one whole sentence is brittle in practice with contradictions, accident, and surprise. I feel like there was no period for 3 lines, for 4 lines. But basically, it says like people assume that these things are um, sort of like there's this one way of seeing how these things evolve, and actually what happens is it these codes reproduce justifications for slavery as these things come, as contradictions come up. So it's not like they're anticipating this one sort of way that people will, or that the concept will become undone. It's like anything. And I think we can see that with even laws today, where it's like, well, I didn't anticipate Stacey Abrams creating this like campaign for, like for people to register people to vote. We didn't anticipate Georgia turning blue. So now we have to rethink all of these things, right, in order to create even to suppress voting even more, right? And so I think that that's what she was getting at, is that sometimes the stuff is like these codes get sprung up mostly because out of like accidents or surprise. And so that is
yeah, it's like you select, basically they were being created as they went along, right? Like, so it's like the situation happens, now we got a code for you.
Yeah.
Because you're wrong regardless. So we go create this code. And essentially that is how laws are enacted in the first place. Things happen. And so we don't want you to do it.
Yeah, we'll make a rule for it, right? Yeah. Even like dress codes, like I ain't like how you wore that. I'm just gonna make a rule that you can't wear that.
I don't like your hair that way.
Right?
So
we just create the law. There was also like this part that really stuck out. We could suppose that the legal encodations of enslavement stand for the statistically average case that the legal code provides the topics of a project increasingly threatened and self-conscious. So pointing out that this is constantly something that is on shaky ground in general. And so it is perhaps
that's why you see them like slave codes and how they transform. Like, so essentially they were like enacted before like the federal government designated states with the ability to create their own laws and different things like that. You see these slave codes being created differently across the nation, or the colonies at that time. And so and then they're kind of did away with, and then they come back as Jim Crow laws or black codes. And so they're always being created and recreated. They're a construct just like everything else we're talking about.
And yeah, it's just gosh, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, let's move on, because I can't even remember what I was gonna say.
So Lion's Time Baby has 2 comments in the chat. The first is question. Motherhood is not a thing amongst animals, and that's how I like feel like they asked the question. So motherhood is not a thing amongst animals, not to be facetious. So like, obviously we know that animals nurture babies, right? Like their offspring. However, like again, just like these laws that said like that were created these norms, motherhood became a thing that only was given to, or I guess only able to be done by white people or white women specifically. So and then they said cause and effect. So that's exactly the thing. Someone doesn't like how something is being done, and so a law is created, or policy is created, or an amendment is created, or a policy to redact voting rights. Okay. Is created. So you want me to go to the next question, or?
Sure.
Okay, so the next question asks, how does slave legal code attempt to transform personality into property? And that is from page 78. Oh, and related to this is a comment. That's insane to think about school. And I'll put it on the, it's not letting me.
I can do it.
Okay. That That's insane to think about. School will have you thinking laws are created for the betterment of society, but instead it is a tool for power, definitely. A
Yep.
tool to maintain a certain structure.
Exactly. Yep.
And
'Cause-
schools, bringing schools up,
Mhm.
schools, right, like are created, or institutions, period, are created to uphold those laws. So,
Right.
of course, they will teach us that
Mm-hmm.
these things are created to help us instead
All
of
agents of the
hinder.
state.
But, huh?
Yeah. I said we're all agents of the state. So
Yeah,
in schools, are no different. So
yeah. School, family, all these things
mhm.
are institutions. Like they're the law, right?
Mhm.
Institutions. So,
Right. So
uh, and again, so how does slave legal code attempt to transform personality into property? Again, that's from page 78. And I just wrote, I mean, it just saw these like beautiful humans, wonderful humans as capital. It just
mhm.
created them as, I mean, it transformed them into capital only and agents of reproduction.
Right.
So,
I looked up the word immovable immovable, which I was like, oh, it can't be moved, and that's one definition. But movable is actually property, or the nature, like it's defined as of property, the nature of a chattel as distinct from land or a building. So when you talk about, like, if you're writing it and you're like, this body, this thing, this whatever is immovable, meaning that it can't be, like, not seen as property. There's no other way to imagine this but chattel, And so writing that in the codes means that people are not able to see beyond, like, this thing as a person, right? It's like that's just in its nature.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking about it's interesting you looked it up, movable versus immovable, because I think one of the issues that, or interesting parts, and the reason why she called it aspirational and prescriptive was because um, white folks at that time defined property in both ways. And so basically they were just creating things as they went along,
Yep.
um, and defining and redefining what an enslaved person could be.
Yep. And I
So,
think that prescriptive is also like, how can other, when you, to your earlier point, like, how can other places who are dealing with things within their own context? That was the point I was going to say. It's like, these things are within a context of whatever colony at the time, but then evolving in the state. So if you're dealing with this issue over here, why don't you take this law or this code and apply it to your situation in your context? And then people, and so though that's the way those things get recycled as well.
yeah, so like that is the nature. This is why like judges have legal discretion. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why the law, like when so people so some people who are fighting against um, legal systems from cities and states want to take it to on a federal level because it becomes a precedent.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
that means if it's a precedent, it is prescribed to and
Mm-hmm.
can be to all of these other cases.
Exactly.
So a lot of people want that to happen, then others don't, because they
Mm-hmm.
know how far reaching it can be and how detrimental it can actually ultimately be
Mm-hmm.
uh, to people. Just, I mean, there are so many loopholes in laws as well, which leaves prescription, right? Like, or
Mm-hmm.
discretion, make those things possible.
Mm-hmm.
So
Also,
oh, go ahead.
I was just reading a quote. Also, the interaction between blacks and whites changed, not necessarily the slave owner, but the poor whites, black people, and free blacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wished Lion's Time, baby. I wish you could say more about that. Like what particularly, what interaction in particular? Because I know like throughout history, like that has happened as a means of
keeping certain,
like division.
right.
And then Daniela Willis, using law as a moral philosophy. I like how she mentioned MLK at the end of the paragraph, starting with 1 on 78.
So the slave is movable by nature, but immovable by operation of law. They also embody the untenable human relationship that Henry David Thoreau believed occasioned acts of civil disobedience, the moral philosophy to which Martin Luther King would subscribe in the latter half of the century.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see what else. Was there something else? But yeah, like to Lion's Time, baby, I think the idea of like that kind of reminds me of that part I think it was part 2 where they were talking about skin color being used as a mechanism for distinguishing
about skin color and body. Like, so if you were injured, if you like arrived with an injury, you were automatically deemed problematic in some way.
Yeah.
And it's
page 70 is where the slaves come. It says, well, slave code started a social class system based upon skin color. Right.
It was a thing that upheld those divisions. And so like Lion's Time Baby mentioned poor whites, the relationship between poor whites, Black people, and free Blacks. The slave codes were the things that maintained those I guess hierarchies. And essentially still people still use them to justify those divisions today.
It permeates our society. I said it still permeates our society to this day.
I mean, I'm telling you, living in Ohio.
Ooh.
I'm just gonna pause. Living in Ohio.
Full stop. Let's have a moment.
45 minutes from Kentucky.
That takes me down every time because you're right there. Because I looked up and I was like, not where you're at, but like it's close.
And in Ohio, there are sundown towns. They're still though, like the further you go south, which is not far. I just mentioned it's 45 minutes away. So like these things, and then you go into Kentucky, and then southern parts of Ohio, which this is actually considered a southern part, but like the further, like Cincinnati, those areas, you know, like Appalachia, and those are the divisions.
Yeah.
And the like, so like the rules of engagement within society that are not even like technically written, but yeah. So the divisions are horrid. Actually, you feel it. It's like you can feel the like chastisement that people like when people are looking at you. You can tell if you're looking like, oh, she fine. Let me look, or it's.
Or where are you at? Who do you belong to? Why are you here?
Why are you here? Why are you living in this neighborhood? What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's a
I live in rural Michigan, so you know I know. It's the corn. I live right next door to a cornfield, so you know. How are we here?
Oh no. Lion's Time Baby also said slave laws was a gradual thing. It wasn't until the late 1600s when the law was passed that the children of a female slave takes the status of the mother. Yes, and it. I was reading something about that, and I think it actually talks about it later.
Yeah, it's called like partus
sequitur ventrum.
Yes,
right, but it's
like adoption.
Yeah, it translates to that which is brought forth follows the belly.
Yeah.
So the mother like depending on who gave birth, right?
Yep.
That situated that person socially.
So
Like,
if you were, even if you were a poor white woman,
you were still
white, your child was born free, right? So they talked about how like indentured servants, their children were born free because they were white.
yeah. Yeah. We can talk about that, but let's go back through.
We going
Questions.
we excited on a Monday.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got
Lion
energy.
Times, baby, got all the questions. Skipping us
Come
around.
through. Come through. LTB.
Yes, LTV, come on. So the next question asks, how is this process similar to the naming practices associated with the did we talk? No, we didn't. Associated with the transatlantic slave trade. In this case, how is the captive body made known? So go ahead. I think we're real excited about this.
I said, now I don't know what I was writing because it was late, but I said append the African from its community and culture and suspend them from lands and give them new names. But that was kind of a question I think that was earlier in this too, when it talks about the oceanic. We had a question about that.
Well, naming came up, like, I think that's what you're saying. It came up throughout. That is on page 72. Those African persons in Middle Passage were literally suspended on the oceanic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Need to be on it. Yep.
And figurative darkness, all of these.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I wrote down was like the right to name is assigned to the captor and inferiority is assigned to the enslaved through lawmaking. So it's impossible for anything other than what has been considered human to possess a name. So if you only say, if you create a system in which these are the people who have the right to name and these are the people who don't, then there's always going to be that status, you know? So.
And think about the fact that like name change, the process of name changing, like is a legal process.
Oh my gosh.
That is a difficult legal process as well. And why do I not have the right to name myself? And if you think about the majority of the people who are doing the name changes, it's us.
Ooh, child, let me tell you, I don't even want to I should tell you this off camera because this might, I don't know who's watching, but even like chosen name policies, right? And how difficult it is. So a chosen name policy, for those who don't know, is really just mostly for our siblings who are like trans or non-binary who do not use their dead name or their birth name or their legal name, right? But how difficult it is for those kind of law or those policies to be enacted. And a lot of it is like, oh, well, we can't like change the names in these different systems because the systems don't talk to each other. And it's all of this stuff that really isn't about that. It's just you don't want to take the effort to have to do it.
I gotta breathe.
And so I'm like, so this is really you being like transphobic, but you're saying like you're using IT as a mechanism.
As your justification. Because IT was constructed. All these things were constructed. You created this program and you put these names in the program.
Listen, you can research. You can research things to get things, whatever else you want to figure out, you can research it, right? Like if you want to change something in the system, you want to figure out how to use some kind, you can literally build algorithms to not be able to recognize Black people's faces. But you can't figure out how to put somebody's chosen name and integrate it into the system. So like stuff like that, it really grinds my gears. You know what I'm saying? And so this is why I believe that there has to be more queer people, trans people, people of color, all of that working in IT, because like the fact that you can't understand why this would be significant to somebody to be able to change their name to the name they choose, it really just bothers me. Especially because like we can do it so easily for like nicknames and things like that. Like it's like, well, if your name is William and I'm like in your bill, then like that is not an issue. But like there's something else there's something else operating here.
Let's say this, like, how quick is it for someone who has gotten married to change their name?
So quick, and y'all be so geek. Oh yeah, Mrs. So-and-so.
Can I tell you that they change?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
I just gotta breathe on here because so
it's Monday and I'm fired up.
My whole life right here, but so I was married, right? Mm-hmm. And I did not change my name whatsoever. Do you know they changed my name in the system?
Stop it.
Can I throw this?
No.
I'm not gonna throw this.
Throw it out the window. Well, so they imposed this name on you, and you didn't even change it anywhere else.
I didn't change it. I was adamant about not changing it because everything that I have done and accomplished in my life has come, has been under Nicole April Carter. I just get it my whole government. There we go. But that is what it is, not Nicole April Carter Abdul. And then there was a at the time, like the Abdul component, right? Like changing it and knowing what was happening in society.
Oh yeah.
And how, like that whole process. Like, so first of all, you took my power away. Like you did so, like it was on everything. It was on like email and the door sign. Like I didn't update my door sign. Y'all just sent me another one. Y'all better not charge me for it.
Look, who budget this coming out of? Y'all budget, and y'all gonna have to replace it, get it fixed. Wow. I can't say that I don't think that would happen. So. They'd be pressed about, oh, you got married, you had a baby?
No, oh, please don't. Okay. I don't even want to go into that part.
This is
the politics of motherhood.
Okay.
And the intersections of age, race, and motherhood.
Okay. Amen.
Because sis biological clock didn't run out. I don't know, not quite, but I may.
Listen,
I would definitely be considered a geriatric pregnancy if it ever happened.
They're gonna have to put you on bed rest.
Everything. So
9 months. You're gonna be like Wendy Williams. Did you see the Wendy? Okay, this is
we might go into something else.
Was on bed rest for her entire pregnancy for her child. It was wild. I watched the document. Wendy Williams.
You said she rests?
She was on bed rest because, like, I think her cervix wasn't like long.
My mom had me at 42, sis. Was on bed rest the majority of time until she gave birth to me 3 months early. 3.
Oh my gosh.
3. So
wow, you were a very tiny baby.
Preemie. Tiny.
You were incubating.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I was about to say that, but it was kind of rude. I'm not gonna say that. You know the term they used to give to babies that were.
Don't do it.
It was a thing that people used to say. It's fine. There's some haters, but yeah.
Spiller mentioned how I'm gonna read this. Even though it's probably off content. Mention how Equiano was named. Yes, multiple times. Absolutely.
That was at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, that's on page.
Someone said the Otis, Lions, LTB.
We are imposing.
Yeah, the oldest I know of is 52. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Was that person a Black woman? Black person? Not Black woman.
I know. Black person. I don't be treating Black people right.
Because
in the maternity ward, y'all.
It's a problem. It's actually, I just had a conversation, actually it was part of a community conversation on maternal mortality.
Mm.
Um, Someone said, of course, she was Black. So I was asking because the fact that there was a healthy baby boy
Right,
involved,
52. And
right? Like because like
did she have a doula?
right because that actually makes a difference.
Listen,
Because
I
that is not the case across the board. Like Black women are dying during childbirth, and it actually really doesn't matter the age. So
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
right.
You can control for all things, and they still
Yeah, because they don't believe, like they believe that we have a higher threshold for pain. And when
yep.
something happens or when you address something, it's not taken seriously. Also, I heard, I don't know where I was at when I heard this, but like the idea that like Black women, what was it? Somebody was talking about blushing and how blushing for white women is a way to show like emotion of some sort or like shame or whatever. And that is a tool for like determining femininity. And so, like, because Black women have like darker skin, you know, for the large part, it's harder for blushing to show up. And therefore, like, the things that people would say were like markers of shame or embarrassment or coyness were often not associated with Black women. Who, I don't know who wrote that, but I think that's all connected to like how we, um, you know, don't necessarily see or understand Black women's pain because we're coming from an assumption that those things are a part of us or we can't like literally see it
Yeah.
show up.
So you can't see it literally, and you've been told to block it. So
Mm-hmm.
block all like outward demonstration of pain as well. So
This
yeah.
is how we get like Henrietta Lacks, you know, like even though you know, I know we have some of us have beef with the book that was written about her. But it was talking about like stuff like how we measure pain, right? And so like if you say to somebody like what's a on a scale from 1 to 10, what's your pain level? And then you're like, but how are you ranking like the pain level? Because for some people to say 3, a 3 on other people could be like a 10. So like, what does it really mean to be in pain? You
So when
know?
I say like all of these things were constructed with white men,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, white men in mind, and
Mm-hmm.
not no women, period, but definitely not Black women. And
Mm-hmm.
so pain thresholds are man, pain thresholds, body weight indexes, like all of these different things were created, medications, levels of medication, treatment options, all of these different things were created with white men in mind. Some
Mm-hmm.
things are being done, like when I tell you, like this whole thing that we're talking about is just stuff that I like research every day,
Mm-hmm.
read about every day, and talk about every day. It just, but it makes my blood is boiling on the inside. My blood
Gotta,
pressure probably like all the way up there.
and then you think that like, because I think about like so much of how we experience stress is so like we're like, well, I don't feel like I'm not in the hospital, so like I'm not stressed. Girl, that is not an indicator of whether or not you're stressed out. You know what I'm saying? You don't get to say like you don't have to be on your deathbed in order to like justify like needing a break or taking time off. Like, you know, like you shouldn't have to have a heart attack to be like, yeah, that I was really under a lot of pressure. Like you should be able to say, well, I have a lot going on. But like people just don't believe you. And like, you know, I'm not gonna go there today because I will end up saying something to get myself in trouble on this
So
live.
as someone with, like, and I think I've talked to you about this, but as someone, and I know I've said it during discussions before, but with 2 autoimmune diseases,
Mm-hmm.
like the number of times I have been questioned about pain and
Mm-hmm.
questioned about like my perception of like how I'm feeling, right? Or doubt it when I say like, and as someone who truly believes in caring for myself and advocating for myself, like people, I get the side eye all day and go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So your eye gets stuck that way because I
Yeah,
don't care. Because I'm not dying because y'all don't believe me.
exactly. And that's the thing. I was in a meeting and a sly comment was made because I have said things like, I don't want to be overwhelmed. I do not want to be at capacity because I think we glorify busyness in
Mhm.
general, and I'm just not into it. And so I let people know, listen, I'm looking at my calendar. This is what I have. This is, I'm not taking on any other projects. This is what it is. And then somebody said something really sly about, these young professionals, they don't want to be overwhelmed and they care about their self-care. And it's like, hell
We
yeah,
do. We
we
do.
do. Because what you're not going to do is overwork me into an early grave and have me out here looking crazy because you don't think we're supposed to be, you know, oh, we're supposed to be working like slaves. Like, no. And, I was like, this is ageist, this is ableist, right? And like, this is not the night. Well, like, gone are the days where we're working. First of all, the people who were working traditional 8 to 5s were probably not work. Like you went home, you did your 8 and you skate, right? This is not. We working around the clock these days, and to
He is no
assume that
white
just
man.
because
He had women, like
taking
white women at home, and also in addition,
mm,
right? Like white women, but housekeepers and nannies and all these other
right a
things.
full support system who were just supported and uplifted. I'm like, first of all, it's horrid being single. Okay. That the fact of the matter is I have to take care of myself. I don't even got nobody up in here to make me coffee in the morning. And you gonna tell me that these young professionals don't want to be overwhelmed? Yes, because I have to make my lunch, I have to shower my body, I have to get up and work out. Nobody's making my coffee in the morning. If I had a dog, nobody's gonna walk my dog.
Nobody gonna change my cat's litter. No.
Look, nobody is pulling the weight. And so I get so tired of people being like, well, you don't have any kids. Like you should be able to, you have all this free. No,
Ew.
I'm spending all my free time cleaning my whole house by myself.
And then we're on a and then okay, so I don't
We,
even.
we gotta get
We
back to
might
work.
make decent money, right? But at the same time, making that decent money, we're living this life by ourselves. And so that money is for all of our bills. Whereas somebody
Wall.
else,
Dual income what? We're the dual income. If I don't make monies, guess who ain't got no house? I
it's
can't quit
over.
my job because guess who ain't got nobody to come to hold me down through health insurance. So people be on their spouse's health insurance. Guess who health insurance I got if I don't got no job?
None. I'm gonna tell you, if I don't have health insurance, this go die. Like I'm not, I just cannot. Like there's no way
So
you can live with all of these things
right.
unless what Daniela said in the thing, going to the ER every single, like I go like before, like when I was in Michigan and I did not have health insurance, the ER was my like primary care physician because that's all I had.
So what is an 8 or 9 or 10 for if it's not to determine that you need pain medication? Is it the black? It got to be a black 8, 9. You got to clarify it like this is a black pain. This is black pain. So that means like it's actually really bad.
I don't know.
Yeah. I just mm-mm.
So
Right.
like basically all of the things that Black women endured or people in like the Black community period dealt with, like during slavery, during enslavement, and throughout history, like we are still living through the residual effects of those things, like the biases that are held up within the medical system and within other institutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a problem.
Yeah. even as those institutions are built of our bodies, right? Because you have like, what was it, J. Marion Sims, the father of modern gynecology? His whole setup.
Whose body was
And not
you?
only women's bodies, not only Black, but girls. Those girls were 14. Like, and granted, there were not like statues around like because we're gonna be talking about wayward lives and how, statutory laws were not, or laws of consent um didn't even account for young girls at a certain age, but that's irrelevant. These were girls. And so like when we talk about how gynecology even came to be, we have to kind of keep that in our mind, is that a lot of these were young girls. And so
They were not given pain medication ever.
no
Well,
anesthesia.
also, if you're thinking about and going back to the text, like the distinction between woman and girl was not a thing. Mm-hmm. And so, like it didn't matter. Age didn't matter to them. Like it was just a specimen to work on and to see what type of experimentation could be done to do this and do that to enhance the lives of other people.
Right.
Well, actual people, because still at that time, we were deemed less than. So
even like that one part where she talks about like how you can exchange like 5 female slaves for like 4 like males, like the interchangeability of it all makes it so that you're seen as a dividend or a portion of, like, you're not necessarily even considered whole, but you can be fractioned off.
Oh, I mean, 3/5 compromise. I mean,
okay. So, just good old, whatever.
So the next question, do you want to skip? Well, it says, as a result of these historic naming practices, what has been the thrust of the project of liberation for African Americans?
Well, on page 79, it just talks about like how we like break apart laws that make them into slaves or property or inherently chattel, and introduce new meanings more appropriate to the historic moment. So I just said there's always been resistance and ways of reimagining and rethinking naming and meanings of names, in order to claim them of their claim to have self-ownership, right? To have self-authorship, right, has always been the way that I think Black people have resisted the different names, whether it's reclaiming terms or whether it's coming up with something else, or some of us have taken on our African names, or chosen to divest in Eurocentric or our slave names and different things like that. And so all of those things are connected to the way that I think Black folks have participated in that project of liberation.
The naming is so interesting to me, like, and the like just misnaming as well, and the misnaming that continues today. So I was just talking to my stepmother earlier today about an incident at work where a person, not naming that person, but I'm not going to give you that much power anyway. But they kept, so for me, they were misspelling my name all the time. And that's one thing. But then another person, a Black person in my, like, whom I work with, like, they were just saying their last name to avoid the first name. Like, to avoid, like, I don't want to mess it up. So here's the thing, like, but then having to have a conversation with a white man who doesn't get it
mm-hmm.
at all. So it just went over his head completely. But yeah, like it's obviously it's a, and
Mhm.
I have like a simple name. So like
Right.
the
I'm
fact
like, how are they misspelling Nicole?
with an H, with no E,
Y'all
with
are
an
freaking
A. Am
up.
I Nicole Love? Like, no, girl. Like what?
Y'all freaking up Nicole, and it's just Nicole. Like,
So who I don't
y'all
know.
putting all them y'all because they assuming that you just gonna put in H because you know you black. And you know black people doing the most with every name. So.
That's a let me not say that's a white people thing. But white folks put an H in Nicole. They do.
Jennifer with a G.
That happens? Wait.
I think I was reading something or watching something, and somebody was like Jennifer with a G, and so it happens all the time. So it's not us.
Wow. It's still, yes, it happens today. It's a problem.
People definitely mispronounce my name,
Yeah.
or you know, forget to put my title on. And I'm not even trying to
Okay.
be that, but like, wait a minute.
We can have a
we
whole
don't know each other.
1 hour discussion on using the term doctor because
Yes.
I earned it.
You
I earned it, my baby. Until
we
I
can
tell
argue
you, don't
though.
call me or just call me Nicole.
And I never do. I'm like, just keep calling me Dr. Blake.
Yep.
Because sometimes I just be like, you know, if y'all want to be assholes about this, I'm going to be an asshole about this too. Yeah.
It started the first day. First day I was on the job. And then, but then among us, it's a problem too. It's a problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is like your title doesn't make a difference. And it's not about the title, it's about the work that went into it. It's about the struggle and the pain and the tears and the late nights and the like I'm almost giving up. Right? Like
6.5 years. Do you know that's time I can't get back? Like, I just don't even remember what life was. It was just a blur. Honestly, I don't actually remember a lot of things that happened. So, like, it'll come back to me and I'm just like, oh, that's where this is coming from. This is why it's kicking up in me right now. It's because I never healed from it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Yeah. Oh, one time somebody called me. I don't even answer the people who call me Danielle. Yes, so many people call me petty. But listen, one time I was at work and somebody called me the first director. Now this is 3 directors ago. Called me her name. And guess what? I just kept walking. I knew they were calling me and I just kept walking. They were like, so and so. And I was like, and then they were like, oh, and then I heard her, she was super loud. She was like, oh, who was, oh, it was the first person. And I'm like, girl, really? Loud, rude. And no, I did not.
I've gotten not even that, like, so not even naming. So not even attempting to name. Like, you're the one who replaced. No, honey. Like, I am.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
I'm not no one's predecessor, replacement. I am me.
Yep.
You will respect
that went on for at least 2 years. And I wouldn't respond to people. And but they think that I'm the biggest.
Leave their face on the floor.
I'm just a petty. What did Daniela say? Petty person. That's me. Petty patties. What you want? Petty LaBelle.
You can call me. How did Spiller start this article off? Let's face it, I'm a March woman. You could call me. No, but everybody knows my name. Petty LaBelle.
There you go. That's a name you can call me.
And Sapphire, Earth Mother.
Okay. We got 3 more questions.
Oh God. All right.
This is a long one right here.
Oh gosh. Okay. I was like, oh, okay, this was a different page. Well, this was a long one. Okay.
Okay. Spillers explains Goodell's reading, and you actually brought it up. But Goodell's reading of the Partis Sequitur Ventrum, excuse my mispronunciation, because I probably made it all up in my head. Yeah, could be considered the originary narrative that led to writing of a document like the Moynihan Report. The legal principle established that a child's condition would follow from its mother. In the context of slavery, this meant an enslaved mother would only bear enslaved children, despite the father's status. But Goodale and Moynihan would agree that this constitutes a degraded condition for childbearing captive Black women because fatherlessness or mother right, by definition, was negating feature of a human community. However, the dominant society mistakenly assigns this condition matriarch's value. Why is this a mistake or a falsehood, according to Spillers?
I think we said it before. But I think under this assumes that the African female that she's been referring to, the enslaved woman, will have any right to motherhood under slavery. So to attribute matriarchy or the creation of it in African American communities means that Black women would have had to always have the right to their children. And so like this, it feels like it just is coming out of nowhere that somehow you're saying like, oh, the matriarchal like Black community, when it's like, but historically, like how did we get from point A to point B? Because historically that just hasn't even been the case. So
Yeah.
where are you pulling these things together?
Yeah, I looked up the definition of a matriarchy. And so it can be defined as a social system in which females hold the primary power and leadership, moral authority, control of property. It said other things, but and just as you said, Black enslaved women had no power. And it's using a term that was constructed specifically to refer to the experiences of white women, particularly when we're thinking about it in the US. It was constructed specifically to describe their experiences as opposed to the experiences of formerly enslaved women. And so therefore, and this goes on to, I think, other questions, like they don't apply. And so things need to be reconstructed or created, like really describe the experiences and really, I guess, define and talk about Black womanhood properly.
So, and I feel like that answers the next question too.
Yep. I mean, that's the difference. Like you're specifically, I mean, and white women were actually considered property as well. However, their offspring were not necessarily property, and it was a different type of property, right? They were still given rights as white women, but because of the womanhood component,
right,
they were supposed to be subservient.
Okay. Here's the question.
Yes.
The law gives matriarchs school Black folk without giving Black women access to motherhood. Right.
Yeah.
And even to your definition, when you talk about where females were the power or the people in power, it also doesn't give womanhood too, right? So it's just like they're all connected, right? So it's not just about motherhood being this like the sole defining feature. It's also about the idea that motherhood was so connected to femininity and also womanhood as well.
Yeah. And so someone, like I would say, someone like you and I, who like have not lived up to society's
I'm just out here
stereotypical notions of womanhood, right? In a variety of ways, we would not we don't fit.
I ain't a woman.
That's fine. I live in the liminal spaces.
Okay.
I exist
I embrace. Like if
in the
they
in
got to be all
between.
that. I'm tired just thinking about it. I'm okay. I'm good over here.
Lion Time Baby said, I would say the word should more so be matrifocal than matriarchy, but they are both related.
Mhm.
And in fact, I think they
Yeah.
talk about all of them.
Mhm.
Variety of mother, like
Matrilineal, Matra. What page was that on? Jeez. I'm gonna find it. If you know the page number,
I'm looking at it.
let us know.
On page 80.
Page
It's on
80.
page Daniela gave us the page number. It's
Okay.
page 80. Yeah, so even though we are not even talking about any of the matriarchal features of social production, reproduction, matrifocality, matrilinearity, matriarchy, when we speak of the enslaved person, we perceive
Mhm.
that the dominant culture, in a fatal misunderstanding, assigns a matriarch's value where it does not belong,
Mhm.
actually misnames the power of the female regarding the enslaved community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of those things do not apply then. Like,
Yep.
so the last question is, what radical space for thinking, organizing, and strategizing for empowerment and liberation does this human and historic development, this monstrosity, create?
Mm.
And I just said, because Black women have continuously fallen outside of traditional roles and ideas of what it means to be a woman,
Mhm.
and female, um, it basically allows Black communities to do something that we seldom do, but to deconstruct these notions and recreate ourselves. Who said it? Audre Lorde? Was it? I don't know if it was Audre Lorde, but creating ourselves for ourselves, naming ourselves for ourselves.
Mhm.
Naming, that's what she said.
Yeah.
Now I gotta look it up.
Mhm. Yeah. I think I said making space for Black women to claim the monstrosity, and embracing the social subject who exists outside of our Western constructions of gender, to learn more, not to make her into the Western idea of feminine or female, but to explore the lost histories of African American women.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I think, to try to render Black women within the framework of Western femininity, Western womanhood is a disservice to us. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what Spillers is calling for is to examine the history, the loss of history, that renders us
Invisible.
invisible, hypervisible, um, and you know, and I also don't think she's necessarily asking us to claim, sort of like go back to our roots and like
No,
in that.
not at all. I don't think so. That's what I was gonna say. I think is actually um calling out Western culture, but also other cultures that
Right.
have attempted to define what it means to be a Black woman for Black women instead of Black women doing it for themselves.
Right. Yeah.
So that quote is, if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive,
Mm-hmm.
which is so telling, and it speaks directly to what was brought up. And then
Mm-hmm.
I also like this last part, because You brought up Sapphire, and I think Lion's Time Baby brought up Sapphire as well.
Mhm.
Actually claiming the monstrosity of a female with the potential to name, which her culture
Mhm.
imposes, and blindness. Sapphire might rewrite, after all, a radically different text for a female empowerment. So what if, like, we
Mhm.
didn't see, what if we were not blinded by respectability politics that like inform our existence and tell us, provide these rules about what it means to be feminine, what it means to
Mhm.
be even masculine, what it
Mhm.
means to be any of these things to exist.
Right.
Lion's Time Baby said, I would disagree with Spiller as pertaining to cultural inheritance. From a broader sense, slavery has always been a legal class, a part of many societies throughout the ages.
Mhm.
True. However, so slavery like has existed, but I do believe American slavery was a whole different institution, and like it was a different construct all in itself. Like it was, and that's not to say that other forms of slavery were not problematic and inhumane. However,
Mhm.
like its whole structure, like basically aligned everything about American society. And it continues to exist today. Like
Right.
many of the notion, like the police.
Mhm. I mean, just the way. Yes, I'm echoing. Hold on. Geez, I'm echoing, but we'll work through it. But yeah, just the way that, I mean, we can trace the legacy from slavery to mass incarceration today. Like there's like literally no stopping. And so like it's not just that it existed in this past, as I think, and I don't want to say that's not how we can think of other forms of slavery, because certainly there are, but I do think like if we're comparing them, I think it would be a disservice to compare, because like you said, there is a particular way that, I mean, it involved transport. I mean, it was just this global project, you know, that I don't think we can really attribute to other or characterize other forms of slavery in the same way.
Yeah.
Not to say that they weren't, like you said, both inhumane, but how.
And the fact that many other societies mimicked the American institution of slavery, and they created other forms of imprisonment and um, just
Mhm.
policing of the body, of the mind, based upon this thing that was created in American society,
Mhm.
is telling of the difference to me,
Mhm.
and the power that was. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's deep, y'all. It's
Yeah,
deep.
I thought this was, I said in the last slide that it ended pretty bleakly, but it really was on a, like, a hopeful note of
It's like we
thinking
can create
through.
for ourselves,
Hmm.
because we were not, like, the construction of these things did not have our human existence in mind, and so
Hmm.
therefore, for us to truly exist in all of our like glory, then that means that it's time to like disrupt and reconstruct some things and redefine and rename.
Hmm. Claim your space, sis.
Huh?
I said, claim your space, claim your name.
I'm telling you.
Hmm. Hmm. So this has been Mama's Babies, Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe, an American grammar book by Horton Spillers, Dr. Horton Spillers. So we hope that you enjoy our analysis, and also, you're encouraged to continue to read along with us on other exploration track reads, and also
Make
follow
sure
us.
to check out the new, the author, not the author, but there will be a scholar discussion of Mama's, I can't say it either. Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe, and Beloved collectively on March 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you
Submit your questions if you have questions. If you also want to put these questions that you put into the chat, into the question box, the Google form, please do so. We have a few more comments. I'll just show those. But true, but American slavery is just more so relevant, especially to us, but good information. I can see that being, within our frame of it's immediate in our frame of reference as well. Yes, we can create women, gender, motherhood for ourselves that can be inclusive. Absolutely. You may mean May 14th. No, we mean April 14th. Are you saying? No, we meet April 14th for the author chat. Did we say May 14th?
Let me look at it. It is April 14th, though. Mm-hmm. I know we were trying to do this one before.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and then if you are reading Freshwater, there are going to be some events coming up also related to some chats with some folks related to that book as well.
Yes. So chat April 14th, 6 p.m. with Dr. Norrell Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then a whole bunch of Freshwater chats beginning April 17th through the 30th. So make sure you check those out.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for your we really do appreciate you all commenting along with us, as we discuss. So thank you all so much. And I will see you all the next time we are asked to do a live discussion. Okay? Bye, everybody.